lecturers who has done tremendous work is Alberto Ramos. He's a fellow of American College of the Sleep Medicine. He's associate professor of the clinical neurology, research director of the U-Health Sleep Medicine program, Miller School of Medicine, and also one of the most important components that I love him that he is a Spanish origin, and he has published many articles on particularly affecting our Spanish population. Thank you very much. Give him a round of applause. Alberto Ramos.
Good morning, and thank you for having me here. I did change my slides a little bit, so even though there's a big overlap with the slides that you have printed on your book, there are some new slides, a little bit changes. Nonetheless, you will have the new slides available, and also the first slide, which has my email address, is right there, so you can feel free to email me if you have any questions or you want the slides yourself. And with that, at the beginning, I'm going to go through a little bit of a background of why we sleep, at least theoretically, some of the basics of sleep and normal changes during sleep patterns as we age, then an overview of some of the consequences of sleep deficiency, and briefly mention the sleep phenotypes that are associated with poor health. And then I'm going to go through what is the evaluation of common sleep disorders, so some of the tools that we use in our clinics, and then try to talk a little bit about the interplay between sleep on traumatic brain injury, abnormal complex behaviors in sleep, which is commonly seen by neurologists and sleep physicians in general, and then a little bit more of stroke, where I probably will spend most of the time. As we all know, if you follow the lay literature, you will find that sleep, there's publication about sleep either in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, or any other publication that will find that sleep has been associated with a host of adverse health outcomes, be it that people have more depression, or even more difficulties with vaccines, and all those things. So sleep is out there, or lack of sleep and its adverse outcomes is out there, and people will commonly come to your office, may come to your office with specific questions about it. Just as a review, there are different stages of sleep that we cycle through them throughout the night. We usually have wakefulness first, and then we go through 3 different stages of sleep, N1, N2, and N3. N3 being delta sleep, or what is called slow wave sleep, which is considered quite restorative sleep. And then rapid movement sleep, it's the dreaming state of sleep. And as you can see here on the graph below, which is commonly done in a sleep report, you see that we start with wake, and then this is hours throughout the night. So with wakefulness, then we go through the deeper stages of sleep, and then we have rapid movement sleep here, denoted by a band. Usually wakefulness and rapid movement sleep are about, if you look at the background of their EEG and their cortical rhythms or the cortical activation, they're very similar. So at times it's very hard to know when the patient is awake or when the patient is asleep, particularly rapid movement sleep, just based on the EEG only. So we use other methods to differentiate them. And an important concept is that we go through a cycle of one of these cycles every 60 to 90 minutes, and it repeats itself throughout the night. And at the beginning of the night, we have a lot of delta sleep, and then towards the end of the night, we get more rapid movement sleep, more of the dreaming stage, towards the early morning hours before we wake up. Now, why sleep? Why sleep is important? We know that sleep deficiency, as I mentioned before, is associated with a bunch of health outcomes. But it's still unclear why we have evolved to such a way that we remain awake and have our activities during the day and feed during the day, and of course, all of a sudden spend our nights potentially vulnerable to environmental or other type of potential problems. Particularly to neurologists, we've come to now to know that sleep is very important to consolidating memories. So when you sleep, specifically during delta sleep or slow wave sleep, your good memories consolidate, and if you have bad memories or you're unable to make good synapses in your memory networks, those tend to die off during slow wave sleep, so your brain is primed for learning the next day. Also, there is during slow wave sleep and sleep in general, there is increased synaptic activity or brain activity with the synapses. If there's more activity, we know that there's more junk that accumulates in the brain, specifically beta amyloid, which is, for example, the protein that accumulates in Alzheimer's disease. And most recently, actually a few years ago, it has been described what is called the lymphatic system, which is basically shows the cerebrospinal fluid movement out of the brain. And we know that the CSF, or cerebrospinal fluid, that's around the brain and spinal cord, moves around blood vessels and glial cells out of the brain. And if you look at this specific tracing from animal models or rodent models, you see that during wakefulness, there's a little movement of CSF, which is the red trace here. And during wakefulness, there's a lot of movement out of the brain for this space. This particular investigator actually injected beta amyloid, again, the protein that has to do with Alzheimer's, and they noted that a lot of the movement out of beta amyloid happened out during sleep through this lymphatic system. Meaning that if, for example, like you do have a deficient sleep or don't sleep as well, maybe the movement of CSF out of the brain doesn't happen as well, and you tend to accumulate more beta amyloid, denoting a potential mechanism linked in sleep, for example, on Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. And there's still two studies trying to replicate this in humans, of course. Now we know that we are becoming a sleep-deprived society. Data from the National Sleep Foundation have shown that at the beginning of the 20th century, we used to sleep 9 hours on average. I'm not sure how they got these numbers, but at least that's being published out there. Now, by the mid-1970s, we used to sleep 7.4 hours, and as recent as 2005, we sleep in general 6.8 hours, and that's if you're lucky. And obviously, there are many reasons for that. Mostly, there are lifestyle choices. So, for example, last night, the Golden State Warriors, I'm a basketball fan, so the Golden State Warriors played against Houston Rockets, and I had to see the game. So that right there, I need to sleep deprive myself just a little bit because of that. But we know too that a lot of people tend to be sleep deprived themselves voluntarily based on either employment, also socioeconomic status. You know that those that tend to be from lower socioeconomic status tend to either live in urban environments that make it harder for them to sleep well, crowded spaces, and also tend to also, for example, have more than 2 jobs or more than one job, and that tends to curtail their sleep. And there's also intrinsic processes that changes throughout the lifetime, and there are 2 concepts. One of them is the sleep homeostatic pressures, meaning that the amount of sleep that you accumulate during the day makes you fall asleep easier, and the circadian timing system, which helps you, despite of accumulating tiredness throughout the day, helps you maintain wakefulness and then fall asleep at specific times during the night and during the day. And these systems tend to maybe change over time. We know that this is based on data from the large meta-analysis. We know that the amount of sleep that we get changes over our lifetime. This is ages, going from neonatal all the way to older adult. And we know that the amount of sleep it decreases as we age until we reach adulthood. So if you're a neonate, you tend to sleep 18 hours per day, usually in chunks of 2 to 3 hours, and then adolescents require probably 9 more hours of sleep. And then as an adult, we need 7 to 9 hours. Older adults tend to have the same requirements, the same need of sleep. But nonetheless, we know that the quality of sleep is not as good. Here we have data showing that the sleep efficiency, or the amount of time that they spend in bed sleeping, it tends to go lower both in men and women. And also the amount of slow wave sleep, which as I mentioned before was N3 sleep or delta sleep, it decreases sharply. You can see here different age groups, and this is the amount of slow wave sleep that you get during the night. And in adolescents and young adults, you tend to get more of slow wave sleep, and there's a sharp decline in your mid-30s that remains more or less stable throughout your lifetime. And if you spend more time in lighter stages of sleep, then there's more chances of waking up and have a sleep that tends to be less restorative. There's also what we consider standard phases of sleep. So for example, this is again hours of sleep throughout the night, and this is what we consider a standard phase, anywhere from 10 to 11 p.m. through, let's say, 6 or 7 in the morning. Older adults tend to have what is called an advanced sleep phase, which what happens is that they go to bed earlier. They actually start to feel sleepy much earlier, so let's say 7 or 8 p.m., and then they have very early awakenings, 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. And that seems to some extent associated to a decrease in the amplitude or the robustness of the circadian rhythms, the systems, the biological rhythms that are able to maintain our sleep-wake cycle normally. In adolescents, actually it's the opposite. They have the delayed sleep phase, where they actually start to feel sleepy at 3 or 4 in the morning. They tend to wake up in the afternoon. To some extent, of course, we tend to think that this is maybe behaviorally induced, like because they play video games or watch TV, Netflix, and all those things, but there's a biological rhythm to it, where we know, for example, that melatonin is secreted at this late hour, melatonin being the main hormone that signals sleep in the brain. And it tends to be secreted at these times in people, in adolescents with delayed sleep phase. So they actually tend to feel sleepy at those times, as opposed to them feeling sleepy at 10 and then just overcoming the sleepiness by doing other activities. They tend, once they enter the workforce, they tend to shift forward. That's usually the case, but many of them maintain themselves sleep deprived because they're able to sleep their quote-unquote regular hours. As was just previously mentioned, there's an obesity epidemic. And interestingly enough, even though both things are multifactorial, we have been noted that the body mass index in the United States has increased steadily over decades, and it kind of almost mirrors the epidemic of sleep deficiency that we have going to in the United States. And of course, again, as I mentioned, both things are multifactorial, but we know now that, of course, obesity causes lack of sleep or can produce poor sleep or lead to sleep disorders. But at the same time, deficiency in sleep tends to do a host of cardiometabolic changes in the body that can actually promote either obesity or create more difficulties with weight loss. Now we know that sleep is very important for attention and vigilance. Data have shown that up to 18 hours of being awake actually can cause more in the way of mistakes in vigilance or attention lapses. Of course, most people are able to compensate because they drink coffee or caffeinated products or are able to use other means to compensate. But if you take people to a research lab and keep them awake, they start to make mistakes after 18 hours of wakefulness. And also there are changes in risk-taking behavior, and there is 20%, just by this amount, there's a 20% increase of motor vehicle accidents that has been described by just being sleep deprived. Also, we know that lack of sleep can lead to worse mood. So, for example, in these imaging studies, here is a normal control. This area of the brain is called the amygdala. The amygdala is the center of the brain that has to do with fear, and it's part of the limbic system, which has to do with emotion control. And in these people that are sleep deprived, in this particular study, they would sleep deprive them and then show them images of car accidents or violent images, and they noted that in the controls, the amygdala didn't light up as much. If you were sleep deprived, your amygdala actually was quite active, showing that sleep deprivation actually enhances the way or changes the way that you perceive things, more so if they're emotionally charged, and that may lead to other problems, be it depression, anxiety, or even increased irritability, and some of those things that we understand or have been associated with depression. With sleep deprivation. Now, which phenotypes or sleep problems have been associated with adverse health outcomes? Of course, insomnia, which is a very common problem. 10 to 50% of adults can have chronic insomnia. I think almost everyone has had a night of bad sleep or a bout of insomnia in their lifetime. Also, short and long sleep durations, which as shown in this graph, here you have the duration of hours of sleep. In many large population epidemiological studies have shown that people that tend to report 7 hours of sleep, then they tend to do well. And those that report less than 6 hours of sleep tend to have more in the way of mortality and morbidity, such as high blood pressure, obesity, and other outcomes. And those that tend to report more than 9 hours, or paradoxically, tend to also report or have been shown to have more in the way of adverse health outcomes. It's not clear why is the case. Also, fragmented sleep have been shown to be associated with many adverse health outcomes, and of course, obstructive sleep apnea, as we have discussed before. Now, what are the common clinical phenotypes that we see in the sleep clinic? The two main players are obstructive sleep apnea and insomnia. As was mentioned before by Dr. Shedia, obstructive sleep apnea is a very common problem where people snore, usually tends to be loud snoring, they have pauses or some breathing during their sleep or choking awakenings, and this leads to frequent arousals or awakenings during the night. On the other spectrum, you have people with insomnia that just have more difficulties either falling or staying asleep, in part because sleep is such a bad experience that they already have a learned sleep preventing association, so they already have bad anticipation, or they anticipate a bad night, and that actually feeds into the insomnia itself. But they actually share a lot of symptoms, either difficulties with attention, concentration, memory impairment, lack of energy, more accidents, more mood disturbances, and of course, unrefreshing sleep. And as it was mentioned before, they commonly coexist or potentiate each other. Usually in the history, we see patients with loud, habitual snoring, again, witness apneas. They can have frequent nightmares, in part triggered by sleep apnea itself, the rapid eye movement sleep, for example, the previous stage. And we also see that patients tend to have abnormal behaviors in their sleep and changes in their sleep timing and duration. There's also daytime symptoms that we try to address. For example, daytime sleepiness. Usually there's a scale called the Epworth Sleepiness Scale, which is a common way to assess sleepiness in the office. It's eight questions where they tell you how much, what are the chances of them dozing off throughout the day. And they can also have, again, dry mouth or sore throat, memory impairment or attention difficulties. So in my clinic, many patients that come with adult ADHD, quote unquote, they tend to actually have a very bad sleep disorders, and many instances have sleep apnea. And similarly, a lot of the patients that come to my clinic with a concern of early Alzheimer's disease, many times this is actually the diagnosis of sleep apnea, or they tend to have quite profound sleep disturbances that explain their attention, concentration, or memory difficulties. There's also very robust data in the pediatric population. I'm sure we're going to have pediatric talk during the weekend, showing that kids with ADHD tend to have more in the way of sleep apnea, for example, or sleep deprivation that may mask or exacerbate symptoms of inattentiveness and hyperactivity. Also, commonly people with sleep apnea will have, for example, morning headaches or headaches at night. Maybe some of the hypercapnia that was explained in the previous talk leads to vasodilation of the blood vessels in the brain and the scalp, and that tends to cause a headache. And there's also increasing the ground pressure with sleep apnea that happens transiently. So these are two common scales that we can use for evaluation of sleep apnea and insomnia. So, for example, the stomach questionnaire. You may be familiar with it, where you have several questions, easy to do, even they can do it in the waiting room. And I'll forward these slides to you. But they can do it even in the waiting room, and you can actually stratify a patient if they are at high risk or low risk for sleep apnea just based on those questions. Also, you have the insomnia severity index, which is an index that gathers information about difficulties falling asleep, staying asleep, and waking up too early, and then symptoms associated with them. You may find people that actually have those quote-unquote symptoms of insomnia, but if they don't have daytime consequences, be that they don't feel fatigue, they don't feel tired, they don't have attention and concentration difficulties, it may be the case that they don't actually have insomnia, but maybe they just tend to be short sleepers, and maybe the insomnia symptoms are maybe misclassified. So in reality, to the undiagnosed or consider someone with insomnia, they don't only have to have nighttime difficulties with their sleep, but also daytime consequences, and that has to be well documented. And of course, when you evaluate someone with sleep apnea, you have PADI scores, you have that narrowing of their upper airway, narcolepsy, and orthoprothenia. All of these, which may lead to what is called a small upper airway. You see here an MRI of the brain of the upper airway. In a normal control, you see here the nasopharynx, the laryngopharynx, and you can see here that in a normal person, there's a very nice open airway here. And in someone with sleep apnea, you can see how the upper airway is very narrow, and there's a lot of fabulous filtration of the tongue here, as you can see in these shown here as a white hyperintensity. And of course, once you go to sleep, you lose the muscle tone during your sleep, and then the upper airway is more prime or prone to upper airway collapse. The mainstay of doing evaluating patients with sleep apnea or any sleep disorder is usually sonography, where you tend to obtain EEG signals through scalp electrodes, and also to evaluate for rapid movements or eye movements through a specific PCIs, and also achieve like myogram and leg movements, aside from bands in the chest and abdomen, to evaluate for breathing changes during apnea, and also for oxygen desaturations. And this is what a sleep study usually looks like when we look at it. As you can see here, this is the EEG part of it, all these waves, and then also you here see the respiratory channels, and then a single EKG, node, and then also you have the electromyogram associated with it. Also, aside from sleep apnea, we also tend to encounter, and this is in the legs, we tend to encounter what's called periodic limb movements in sleep. And you can see here, this is again the EEG, but I want to direct your attention here to the legs channels. So you can see here movements, like big deflections that are associated with movements of your legs that happens periodically every several seconds, and they're quite synchronous. And people with periodic movement in sleep, usually those patients with restless leg syndrome, and it was mentioned before that this is a clinical diagnosis that you can do, restless leg syndrome, usually those patients, about 80% of them, will have these findings during the polysomnography. So many times we have a patient that don't have the symptoms, or don't, at least they have any core symptoms of restless legs, And as part of our recommendation, when we see this, is tell the clinician that please evaluate the patient for Breast syndrome. Another tool that we use is called the actigraph. The actigraph, you can see here, it's a watch-like device that is worn in the non-dominant wrist, and it's basically a research grade or it's a Fitbit on steroids, if you want to call it like that. And what it does is it has been usually calibrated as electroencephalogram, and it allows you to look at the sleep timing and the sleep duration of the person. Usually these black reflections are movements throughout the day, and each line or each row, it's a day of the week. And you can see all these reflections, all of a sudden they stop, and you can tell if the person is asleep or estimate their sleep time and their sleep hours based on the lack of activity. And you can see this person has very nice sleep-wake rhythm, where it's able to fall asleep more or less about the same time every day, and wake up more or less about the same time every day too, and have a very good sleep duration. In someone with very poor sleep hygiene, we will see that they have variable sleep time or wake times, but at the end, it leads overall with very short duration of sleep and sleep deprivation. Similarly, you will see in someone that has a shift work sleep disorder that these are the hours of night, mostly here, and they are actually, most of their activity or movement happens during nighttime as expected, and then they're trying to have daytime sleep, which tends to be also very short and tends to be very, very inefficient, leading also to sleep deprivation. So now, changing to sleep disturbances after traumatic brain injury. Commonly, as you may know, traumatic brain injuries is a very common problem nowadays. It's not only related to sports, also to if you do see patients that are veterans, they tend to also have concussions or mild traumatic injury associated to their deployment. Also, if you may have student athletes or other people that may be exposed to sports and have concussions, and we know that the acceleration, deceleration motions tend to cause the traumatic injury, or tend to cause the problems in these patients, and usually they tend to have a lot of sleep difficulties that are associated at the time during the event. For example, they may have usually increased somnolence or hypersomnia. They tend to be sleepier than more. They tend to have a lot of decreased nighttime sleep quality or quantity, a lot of daytime sleepiness, and their sleep status also changes. So they tend to have more lighter sleep, for example. And also the reports of sleep-wake function tend to be very erratic. Those people that we tend to do actigraph, because usually there's a big mismatch between what they perceive and what actually we're able to obtain objectively. A lot of what we have studies have shown that after traumatic brain injury, you have decreased in orexin. And orexin is one of the molecules that actually maintain wakefulness during wake, and then to stabilize the transition between sleep and wake. And it decreases transiently and then turns to improve. And usually people with low orexin levels tend to have narcolepsy too. So many patients with traumatic brain injury always have the hypersomnolence or the daytime sleepiness that is seen in narcolepsy, but they can have narcolepsy-like symptoms. And there's also increased sleep fragmentation. They also tend to sleep more, to spend more time in bed. And to some extent, a lot of the symptoms tend to resolve after several months, but in some patients, they actually tend to persist at the time. There have been tried different treatment options to improve their sleep. That goes anywhere from behavioral changes of the sleep patterns to actually just provide them medication for wakefulness, or to treat any other comorbid sleep disorders like sleep apnea. Consequently, a lot of people with traumatic brain injury also have cognitive dysfunction, and traumatic brain injury has been shown to be a risk factor for Alzheimer's disease and dementia. And in this particular study that we did, was actually in people not with primary brain injury, but in 8,000 Hispanics across the U.S., we observed that patients that were mostly middle-aged with mild sleep apnea, the worse their sleep apnea was, they had worse cognitive function across different domains, these being learning, memory, word fluency, and what is called executive function. Showing that sleep apnea, maybe if it is combined with, for example, someone with traumatic brain injury, may make them more vulnerable to having, for example, long-term consequences of cognitive decline. In addition, we observe an inverted U-shape in patients with different sleep durations. As you can see here, sleep duration of the average of sleep, and the higher here the scale, the best your cognitive score, and those that slept 7 hours actually had the best cognitive scores across the different cognitive functions that we measured. And if you were a short sleeper, you did worse, but if you're a long sleeper, you did even particularly worse than short sleepers. Now, some of the abnormal behaviors of sleep that we encounter can be divided into parasomnias. Parasomnia is a normal or complex behavior in sleep. Commonly, for example, sleepwalking will be what you consider non-REM parasomnia. And other parasomnias are what you call rapid movement parasomnia, as you can see here. Other problems that we may see are nocturnal seizures, or people that have seizures only during their sleep that can manifest as a complex sleep behavior and it's difficult to follow what exactly is going on. And occasionally we'll have patients that the events are psychogenic, even though those are harder to tease out. Usually if you have a non-REM parasomnia, the symptoms occur usually at the beginning of the night. As you recall, a non-REM or delta sleep occurs mostly at the beginning of the night, so that's when you will see a non-REM parasomnia like sleepwalking or somnambulism or sleep terrors. And then rapid movement sleep or REM parasomnia like REM behavior disorder will happen towards the early morning hours or more closer to your wake time, anywhere from 3 to 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning. Now, nocturnal seizures can occur anytime during the night, but they're more common in the first 2 hours and last hours of sleep. And this is what we see in REM sleep with atonia, usually during rapid eye movement sleep, because your brain is very active and you're having all these images of wakefulness, all these images during your sleep. Your body tone, you're very tonic, so you basically have any body tone. And as you can see here in these, you see here what we consider rapid movement sleep, or the rapid movement, you can see here in this tracing. But at the same time, you have increased muscle tone, as noted by the arrows. And usually these should be quiet, there should be no movement at all. Let's see if I can show you an example of some of the brain behavior. This was one of the first cases of brain behavior disorder that was diagnosed or observed in camera. That was 1986 at the University of Minnesota. You can see the patient wakes up from a dream or doesn't really wake up, just move around, starts to punch and times you have patients who punch the bed partner, or commonly either punch their bed partner or fall out of the bed, or actually injure themselves or other people in the room. People with REM behavior disorder, the majority of them, if we see them in the clinic, they're diagnosed with idiopathic REM behavior disorder. The majority of them, about at 10 years, 50% of them, and probably 80% of them at 15 years, will develop a dementia, Lewy body dementia, or Parkinson's disease, or will develop another type of Parkinson-like syndrome, usually called alpha-synucleinopathies. So commonly we'll see a patient with this concern, and what will happen is they already have seen, they already know what's going on, they've gone to Google, and they of course are already very scared of what the implications might be of their diagnosis. And in part we try to counsel them and help them through the process. The most common in terms of epilepsy, the most common epilepsy that we see during sleep and it's hard to differentiate from a parasomnia is what's called frontal lobe epilepsy, which usually EEGs can be completely normal. And a lot of some of these patients have very weird or abnormal behavior in their sleep. And the only way to tell is for them to have electrodes inside their brain or in the scalp, inside the scalp to actually monitor the brain rhythms. You can see here all the electrical movement associated with their events. Now, commonly as moving on to stroke, we know that one of the first descriptions of sleep apnea was done by Charles Dickens in the papers. Well, he described the fat boy, which had many of the symptoms of sleep apnea, had the sleepiness, and also had what it seems to be loud snoring sounds, and they also have what seems to be cognitive difficulties, wasn't as smart as others. And of course, it's tend to describe what is called now the obesity hypoventilation syndrome, what you may know as weekend syndrome. Sleep apnea, as it was shown before, it's a very common problem. About 12% of the population is estimated to have some degree of sleep apnea, which is a lot of people, and it tends to be worse in certain minorities, such as non-Hispanic blacks and Hispanics tend to have more way of obesity and maybe upper airway or kind of variable changes that may predispose them to sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is largely still diagnosed. About 8% of patients with sleep apnea may not be diagnosed, and among those that are diagnosed, the majority are treated with CPAP.